A father walks into his daughter's kitchen expecting a warm Sunday evening visit. Instead, he's met with billowing smoke, the acrid smell of burning flesh, and a scene that will haunt him for the rest of his life. His 21-year-old daughter lies motionless on the floor, stabbed multiple times, set on fire. And just meters away, an 18-month-old baby girl sits in stunned silence, witnessing what no child should ever see. This isn't the beginning of a horror movie. This is the real-life nightmare that shattered the Hales family on November 21st, 1993. And 31 years later, the question that has tormented investigators, destroyed relationships, and divided an entire community remains unanswered. Who killed Karen Hales? But here's what makes this case extraordinary. Just 3 months ago, in October 2024, Suffolk police made a revelation that changed everything. The 3 main suspects they'd been investigating for over 3 decades, they're all dead, every single one of them. And now, for the first time in 31 years, people who've been living in fear might finally be ready to speak. Karen Hales was 21 years old when her life was brutally cut short. She lived on Lavenham Road in Ipswich with her partner Peter Ruffles and their beautiful 18-month-old daughter Emily. Karen worked part-time at the local boot store, while Peter worked at the bus depot. They were young, in love, and building a life together. Sunday, November 21st, 1993 started like any other weekend day for the small family. The weather that day tells its own story. There were at least 2 inches of snow blanketing the ground. It wasn't exceptionally cold, but the combination of snow and early darkness meant the streets were virtually empty. By 4 p.m., darkness had already fallen over Ipswich, the kind of darkness that gives predators confidence and witnesses very little to see. Karen and Peter had spent the day visiting family and watching television. Nothing unusual. Nothing that would suggest this ordinary Sunday would become the day that changed everything. At 3 p.m., Peter began getting ready for his afternoon shift at the bus depot. Karen, being the loving partner she was, made him sandwiches for work. At exactly 3:50 p.m., Karen and little Emily stood at the window, waving goodbye as Peter left for what would be their final farewell. Peter arrived at work just 10 minutes later, right on schedule. But here's where the story takes its first crucial turn. Soon after Peter arrived at work, Karen's parents, Geraldine and Graham Hales, came to see him. They were having problems with their car and needed to talk to Peter about it. During that conversation, Peter mentioned that Karen was home alone with Emily. That simple statement would set in motion the events that would lead to the discovery of one of Suffolk's most horrific crimes. When Peter told them Karen was alone, Geraldine and Graham decided to visit their daughter and granddaughter on their way home. It was a spontaneous decision, a loving gesture from caring parents who wanted to check on their young daughter. They had no idea they were about to walk into a nightmare that would traumatize them for the rest of their lives. At approximately 4:40 p.m., Geraldine and Graham Hales knocked on Karen's front door. No answer. They knocked again. Still nothing. Graham, being a concerned father, tried the door handle. It was unlocked. The moment he opened that door, he knew something was terribly wrong. Smoke immediately hit them. Thick, choking smoke that burned their eyes and filled their lungs. Graham rushed toward the kitchen, following the source of the smoke. What he found there would haunt him forever. His daughter Karen was lying motionless on the floor. Multiple stab wounds covered her body. Someone had attempted to set her on fire. The flames were still burning when he found her. But here's the detail that makes this case even more chilling. 18-month-old Emily was in that same room. She was sitting on the kitchen floor, completely unharmed, but witnessing the aftermath of her mother's murder. The baby, who should have been Karen's greatest protection, had instead become the silent witness to her brutal death. Graham and Geraldine immediately called the police and fire department while scooping up little Emily to get her away from the horrific scene. When first responders arrived, they quickly determined that Karen had been the victim of a vicious attack. The fire was not accidental. Someone had deliberately tried to destroy evidence by setting Karen's body ablaze. If you're feeling the same chills I am right now, and you want to see how this investigation unfolds with all its shocking twists and the recent breakthrough that has everyone talking, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Trust me, what comes next will completely change how you see this case. The post-mortem examination revealed the full extent of Karen's injuries. The cause of death was determined to be shock and hemorrhage, secondary to multiple stab wounds. But the killer hadn't stopped there. The attempt to burn Karen's body suggested someone who either wanted to destroy evidence or send a message, or both. Suffolk police immediately launched what would become one of the biggest murder investigations in the county's history. A dedicated team of around 50 officers was assembled. They interviewed witnesses, conducted fingertip searches, forensically examined Karen's home and the surrounding area, carried out house-to-house inquiries, and questioned over 400 motorists, hoping someone had seen something suspicious. But here's what made this case particularly puzzling from the very beginning. There was no sign of forced entry at Karen's home. Either the front door had been left unlocked, or Karen knew her killer and had willingly let them into her house. This detail would become crucial to the investigation because it suggested that Karen's murderer was either someone she trusted or someone who had been watching the house, waiting for the perfect opportunity. The investigation into Karen's murder revealed something deeply unsettling. 2 Laser 7 brand kitchen knives were missing from the house. These weren't random items taken by a burglar. These were the weapons used to end Karen's life. Along with the knives, Karen's purse had also disappeared. To this day, 31 years later, none of these items have ever been recovered. The timeline of that day becomes crucial here. Remember, Peter left for work at 3:50 p.m. Karen's parents discovered her body at 4:40 p.m. That's a window of just 50 minutes. 50 minutes for someone to gain entry to the house, brutally murder Karen, attempt to set her body on fire, and escape without leaving a trace in the snow. But here's where the case gets even more chilling. The day before Karen's murder, on Saturday the 20th of November, something had already spooked her. Peter had gone out for the evening with colleagues from work, leaving Karen home alone. At some point during that evening, Karen heard someone at the front door. When she got up to look, she saw someone trying the door handle. Fortunately, the door was locked. Karen was too frightened to call out and see who it was. There had been reports of break-ins in the local area, and she didn't want to draw attention to the fact that she was alone in the house. This incident suggests that Karen's killer may have been watching the house, learning the family's routines, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Think about this for a moment. On Saturday night, someone tried Karen's door when Peter was out. On Sunday, when Peter left for work again, Karen was murdered. This wasn't a random attack. This was planned, calculated. Someone had been studying the Hales family, learning their patterns, waiting for the right opportunity. The investigation revealed several witness sightings that painted a disturbing picture of the events that afternoon. 2 local residents were taking a shortcut near Karen and Peter's house when they saw a man walking in the opposite direction. They were going to ask him for the time, but decided against it because he looked like he was in a hurry. They described him as wearing a blue or grey parka coat with a fur hood. But the most chilling sighting came from a woman walking her dog at approximately 4:40 p.m. She noticed a man running, and when he saw her, he stopped and stared. She later told police that the way he looked at her was deeply unsettling. Her description matched the other witness accounts. A man in a parka coat with fur trim, but this time he was running away from the direction of Karen's house at the exact time her parents were discovering her body. Years passed. Decades passed. The case went through regular reviews, and there were periodic media appeals, but Karen's killer remained unidentified. The investigation had generated over 1,400 lines of inquiry. Every single one was followed up. Over 400 motorists were questioned. Hundreds of witness statements were taken. Forensic evidence was analyzed and reanalyzed. But the killer remained a ghost. But here's what makes this case extraordinary, and why we're talking about it today. In October 2024, just 3 months ago, Suffolk police made a revelation that has changed everything about this 31-year-old cold case. Before I reveal this game-changing development that has investigators more hopeful than they've been in decades, I need you to do something. If this case is gripping you the way it's gripping me, smash that like button and share this video with someone who loves true crime. What I'm about to tell you next is the reason this case is making headlines again after 31 years of silence. The revelation came during a renewed appeal on BBC's Crime Watch Live. For the first time in 31 years of investigation, police revealed that they had 3 declared suspects for Karen's murder. But here's the shocking part. All 3 suspects are now dead, every single one of them. Andy Guy, the Major Crime Review and Unsolved Case Team Manager, explained the significance of this revelation. These 3 individuals were violent, involved in drugs and domestic burglaries. If anybody knew or suspected they had involvement in Karen's murder, they may have been too frightened to come forward. The fear of retaliation from these dangerous individuals had potentially kept witnesses silent for over 3 decades. But now, with all 3 suspects dead, that barrier has been removed. Police are hoping that people who were previously too scared to speak out or who felt some kind of loyalty to these individuals will now feel safe to come forward without fear of repercussions. The identity of these 3 deceased suspects remains a closely guarded secret. Police cannot name them publicly, but Andy Guy made it clear that there will be people in the community who know exactly who he's referring to. These weren't random criminals. They were local individuals whose violent reputations were well known in certain circles. Think about what this means. For 31 years, people in Ipswich may have been walking around knowing who killed Karen Hales. They may have suspected, they may have heard rumors, they may have even witnessed something. But fear kept them silent. Fear of these 3 violent men who were still alive, still potentially dangerous, still capable of retaliation. The police strategy is brilliant in its simplicity. By revealing that these suspects are dead, they've essentially given anyone with information a free pass to come forward. There's no longer any risk of retribution, no fear of becoming the next victim. The barriers that have protected Karen's killer for over 3 decades have finally been removed. But perhaps the most heartbreaking aspect of this case is Karen's daughter, Emily. She was just 18 months old when her mother was murdered. She has no memories of Karen, no recollection of the woman who brought her into this world and loved her unconditionally. Emily has had to grow up with the knowledge that her mother was brutally murdered and that her killer has never been brought to justice. Emily is now 32 years old. She's lived more years without her mother than Karen ever got to live herself. Think about that for a moment. Karen was 21 when she died. Emily is now 32. Emily has surpassed the age her mother ever reached, and she's done it all without the guidance, love, and support that only a mother can provide. The current investigation is more hopeful than it's been in years. The revelation about the 3 deceased suspects has already generated new leads. People are coming forward with information they've held onto for decades. Conversations that were whispered in private are now being shared with investigators. The wall of silence that has protected Karen's killer for over 3 decades is finally beginning to crack. Here's what I need you to understand. This isn't just a story about a crime that happened 31 years ago. This is about justice that's still within reach. If you're watching this video and you're from the Ipswich area, if you remember anything from November 1993, if you've heard rumors or whispers over the years, now is the time to speak up. The people you were afraid of are gone. The only thing standing between Karen's family and justice is silence. And if you're not from the area but you believe in justice, share this video. Get Karen's story out there. Someone watching this might know something. Someone might remember a conversation, a strange behavior, a person who changed after that November day in 1993. The joint Norfolk and Suffolk Unsolved Case Team can be contacted at 01953423819 or by email at unsolvedcasereviewsnorfolk.pnn, police.uk. You can also contact Crime Stoppers completely anonymously at 08005 55 111. Karen Hales was 21 years old when her life was brutally ended. She had dreams, plans, a future she was building with Peter and little Emily. All of that was stolen from her on a snowy Sunday afternoon by someone who thought they could get away with murder. For 31 years, they've been right. Emily Hales has lived 31 years without knowing who killed her mother. Karen's parents have endured 31 years of wondering who destroyed their family. The community of Ipswich has lived 31 years with the knowledge that a killer walked free among them. But this could be the year that changes everything. This could be the year that someone finally finds the courage to speak up. This could be the year that Karen Hales finally gets the justice she deserves. If you've made it this far, you clearly care about justice as much as I do. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, ring that notification bell, and share this video. Let's make sure Karen's story reaches as many people as possible, because somewhere out there, someone knows something. And now finally, they can speak without fear. The kitchen fire that was meant to destroy evidence 31 years ago has instead become a beacon, still burning bright, still calling for justice. The question is, will you help fan those flames until the truth finally emerges? Karen Hales, remember her name, share her story, help bring her killer to justice.